In terms of just the mood in the Pelicans room and how they are evaluating things from ownership on down during this season, where, as we remember early on when they were at their best, they were third in the West, and we thought they were going to be a team that was fighting for home court. But injuries are injuries, and they've had a slew of them. How do you kind of differentiate that as far as how the analysis is, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's just really tough because, like you said, I mean, when they were mostly healthy, they were one of the best teams in the league. When Zion and I always post a number. When Zion, Bi, and CJ play together, they're like a +10 net rating. They just destroy teams when those guys play together. But they've only played like 10 games together the whole season, and I think it took them a while to really figure out what their identity was going to be without Zion, and then getting Bi back from a long injury stint. It took him a while to start feeling like himself again, and I think after, like I said, after that Lakers loss and that Bulls loss, they really adjusted their identity again, and now they're running everything through Brandon Ingram. His usage is through the roof. He's got back-to-back games with 30 points and 10 assists. They're leaning heavily on Trey Murphy. He's looking like a 6'10 Klay Thompson out there. The way he shoot the ball, had 10 threes the last game, and it feels like they just really know how to win now with this group. They got a better feeling on how they should be playing. They're leaning more into Jonas Valanciunas, and I think now they're kind of starting to feeling like, hey, we did this last year, right? Where we got healthy, we got hot right around the playing time. We know who Brandon Ingram is. We know Willie Green's a good coach, and they're feeling like, hey, if we can get in to this last stretch of games playing well, playing confidently, then they feel pretty good about whoever they end up getting matched up with in a potential playing scenario. And they look at it as, hey, we've been here, we know what it's like, and if we're playing the way we should be playing, they can compete with pretty much anybody.
Stay on in that playing from last year. And correct me if I'm wrong. Like Zion was almost able to come back right around the play, and then even I remember in that first round Pelican Sun series, like they made it clear he wasn't coming back, but like physically, wasn't he like basically there?
Oh, if you ask Zion, he could have played. He wanted to play. He was
Yeah,
desperate to play. I mean, if you remember, he posted the clip of him, throwing down a between the legs dunk in the practice facility. That was him kind of sending the shot to the world, like, "Hey, y'all, I'm ready to play.
it's
They're
not
holding me
me
back," kind of
essentially.
thing.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I
So
think
I asked that because I mean it was clearly at a time where they were really concerned about getting his body right, but also he was about to sign the contract. He signed now. You're a year later in this, Zion run. He is again like coming right up to where he might physically be ready right around the play-in playoffs. Do you feel like this season there will be more urgency and more willingness from the organization to push him back on the court? Obviously, I would assume he's going to want to play in the biggest, stage in the sport. But do you think they will be less cautious? I would say.
Yeah, I think so. Just because last year the difference was he hadn't played at all, right? He played 0 games during the regular season. He hadn't played basically since the previous season, the empty arena season. So I think this year he hasn't played since January. So he's been out, a much shorter period of time. And I think coming back from a hamstring is different from coming back from a broken foot. I feel like, of course, there's some re-injury risk with a hamstring, but it's not as scary as coming back from a broken foot. So I think, yeah, they're not going to be as cautious. They really want to get him out there. And I think after that experience last year, they're going to be less likely to kind of have that fight with him over sitting him out in playoff games. Because I think that was the big thing for Zion. He was like, man, I just want to play in the playoffs. I want to feel these environments. I want to be in front of these crazy crowds and, sitting on the side. I know that really, that messed with him mentally. And that's something that he's talked about a good bit about, just how much of a mental struggle last year was for him sitting out and watching all of that. And I know he really wants to get back this year and try to make an impact. Because the other thing is, when you look around the West, man, if they get a healthy Zion Williamson back, this team can make some noise in the West. If they get the right matchup, they could be a scary team if they're finally healthy and they're playing confidently going into the playoffs. So yeah, they're gonna want to get him back. They're much more open to putting him on the floor this year than they were last year, and they feel internally if they can get healthy, they can do some stuff. Once we get
Yeah.
to April.
Look, nobody's that good, so everybody's dangerous.